Okay, everybody, I have the honor right now to talk to the man himself, Douglas Hodge, a.k.a. Rollo Haynes, from Black Mirror's episode Black Museum. How you doing today?
Very well. Very nice to talk to you.
Yes. So my first question I had for you was, how did this role come about for you? Did you have to audition for it?
No, I didn't. I suppose, well, I'm an English actor, although I live in New York, but I'm known, I suppose, over there much more than I am over here to the makers, I suppose. And out of the blue, they phoned and said, here's a script. What do you think of this? And I read it, and I have to say, I think it's the best first script I've ever read in my career in terms of TV or film. And the whole thing seems completely formed. There was nothing to be rewritten or changed or anything about it. It seemed funny, it seemed terrifying, and it seemed daunting that it was the darkest role I think I'd ever undertaken. And of course, I'm a huge fan of Charlie Brooker, and so I just read it in one go, phoned up and said yes, and that was it.
Okay, so you didn't even have second thoughts about taking it, like you were full on in.
I was full on in all the time. While I was doing it, I was a little kind of worried about how toxic the person was, but I never had any concerns about the piece, really, or the way it's written, or, I just thought it was wonderful. And I love the series, too, so, it was just a perfect fit.
Okay, so you had watched some Black Mirror before this, or had you watched all of it? Were you like a big fan of the show?
Well, like everyone, I hadn't watched all of it because there's some I just couldn't watch. I absolutely adore the show. I love the show, and I've watched right from the pig onwards. I mean, I've watched all of them, I suppose. I don't know if some of them I like better than others, and it's really just a question of my taste and my politics or who I am or whatever. And some I know that some people think, oh, that's my favorite episode ever, and I'm sort of different. But yeah, I think he as a writer is phenomenal. I think the idea is phenomenal, and I think it pushes the boundaries of all those stories where they should go. And it's not just about the future. It's or tech. It's about people.
Yeah. And
I think it's just a wonderful undertaking. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, Douglas, when this came out, actually, what my audience might not know is that Penn Jillette had wrote the short story Pain Addict in the 80s, and the first story in Black Museum is based off of that. Now, it's said that Penn Jillette at one point wanted to possibly play the role of Rollo Haynes. We already cast him the part. Did you get any wind of this, that this was being talked about, or how did that kind of go about?
I had no idea of that whatsoever until after I had played the role. And then once the episode came out, I saw there were people saying that, and I wasn't aware. I mean, I tend to just work from the script you've got, and there was enough there to make a whole world from. And so, yeah, I didn't know that, no. And of course, he would have been fantastic.
But see, it must have felt great because recently on Twitter he had gone on to praise your performance, and that must have been a really good feeling for you.
Well, I was such a gentleman, too. I mean, he didn't need to say any of that. And, I mean, the feeling's mutual. And I thought not only, is he great, and it would have been thrilling to see him, actually, but I thought the way he handled the whole thing was gentlemanly and polite and extremely kind. And, I'm very grateful to him. I mean, it's a dark, dangerous, vicious story.
Sure.
And it's funny that there are, of course, all sorts of little aspects of him in it, but it was unbeknownst to me, and no, I had no idea that he was involved in it at that point. I didn't know any of the sort of originators of the original story. I didn't know where they'd come from when I came to it. No.
Oh, okay.
I just thought it was Charlie Brooker.
Now, for the character of Rollo Haynes, for a character like this to get into such a dark role, is it possible to find parts of yourself, like your personal life, to get in that mindset? Or is that just not possible for such like a, you could say, evil person that you're playing?
Well, I think, yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully. I mean, what you do as an actor is, it's a pretty noble way to live your life, really. You just empathize with other people. You put yourself in other people's shoes. That's what you do for a living. So you try and see the world from their point of view as sympathetically as possible. So the elements where he is, I mean, if you just put aside the psychopathic sides of him, he is a wonderful salesman. He adores tech. He loves to tell stories. There are aspects of that that are okay to be around. And on the day, I mean, when I filmed it, I really just kept myself to myself, and quite often Letitia tried to make conversation or people, and I just thought, nah, I'll just stay in my corner and keep this whole toxic, poisonous person simmering. And of course, it's magnificent that he gets his comeuppance. And we sort of ran a sort of a slightly self-delusional thing where I hadn't quite taken in quite what was going to happen to him. So we shot everything chronologically. So it was delightful in that way that I met her and, introduced her to things. And then we shot the earlier scenes first. So I had that as almost memories. So, and we didn't shoot anything until the very end of the film. So all that was very helpful, really. The way that Colm McCarthy directed it was just allowed me to sort of dupe myself into believing I was this person. I mean, he's totally unempathic as a person and, misses all sorts of signals of how to behave socially and how to be.
Did you stay in character at any point off of set, or are you able to, snap out of this crazy role, or is it something you kind of get sucked into completely?
Well, you do get sucked in completely. I tend to get sucked in, especially if you're doing a 14-hour shooting day. You get up about 5:30, you get in a car. I'm very quiet. I just keep myself to myself. You get in the costume, you get on set, and then you're there for 14 hours. You can be there till 8 p.m. in the evening or whatever. And then you go back to your hotel. I was in my own sort of room. I wasn't with anyone. I didn't really eat with anyone ever. And Colm McCarthy did this thing which was pretty alarming to begin with, where he decided to shoot every single moment of the film. So he shot all the voiceover. So all of that does actually exist. I mean, so, even though I knew we would be flashing back at this point and you'd be seeing the cars arrive or, the people in the hospital or the guy going down, with the drill or them having sex or whatever, I knew those scenes would be seen and they were filming them. He actually shot it in the museum. Once we were in the museum, which was they actually built as a one-off story. So I told all the stories and he shot all of it. There was none that we sort of went, okay, there goes the voiceover here, so we'll do that in ADR in a studio later. Sort of thing. We shot the entire thing, which meant that I learned every word of the script and sort of lived through it, really. So again, that was very conducive to me just staying in my little poisonous bubble and helped me do it. And I was just very, very relieved when the whole thing was over.
Sure.
It was gross. It's like just swallowing a thimble of poison every day.
That's great. No, you pulled it off completely. Now, did you give him a whole backstory in your head? Like, we know he was a neurological research recruiter, but did you go further back, like maybe in just your mind had to create something like, why did he become this? What's his ultimate end goal as a person? Did you find anything like that, or you kind of don't go that far into it?
Yeah, I suppose I do, but on this particular role, I was more interested in what happened in between, really. The stuff. So once, when he's at TCKR and when he's working there and he's a success and he's driving along those sort of ideas, then when he gets sacked from that because of ACLU and all those reasons that he gives, that it was inhumane to have less than 5 emotions in a. All those. When he loses his job, I sort of tracked more what happens between then and what sort of how many of his clothes he would have left, how much money he would have left, how he would set up that museum, how he would run it, how successful it was for a while, what happened when the people stopped coming and they just had the weirdos and the perverts and they were the only people coming, and how lonely he is. So that really the work was to be done from his success in between, the two periods in the film, I think, as an actor. That's sort of what I concentrated on, really.
Very interesting. And was there any characters from other movies or film or theater that you kind of used as inspiration to maybe how you're going to approach playing Rollo Haynes?
Well, a lot of people have talked about Willy Wonka because I played Willy Wonka for a year in the West End. I did the new version of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory as the musical.
Right.
I originated that role, so I played that role for a year, and there was a sort of aspect of a completely obverse, dark, desperate, poisoned, horrible version of Wonka, who has his own factory and his own logic and his own, inability to socialize and his own pathological ways of behaving. But it also sort of teeters on genius.
Right.
So people have said that, but I don't know. There were bits of all sorts of people, bits of Jack Nicholson and people like that who are in my mind. Also because I'm English, I have sort of different cultural references, I suppose, to that sort of American person, where they've come from and how they behave. But there's also, I suppose, which Colin and I talked about a lot, a grand guignol, big acting, required. I mean, there's a way where you can play all these things where you just mumble and grumble and you hardly show any emotion. And he constantly wanted, which is unfashionable these days, something that was big and unafraid and, real storyteller. And when he dies, he really dies.
Yeah.
And, of course, you as an actor are going, okay, this is too much. But those old performers like Nicolas Cage and Jack Nicholson, they went for these big, meaty, hefty, roles. And there's an element of that which we kept talking about on set of, let's make it, meaty and have him chewing the scenery.
I love that. I love that a lot.
Yeah, it's kind of out of fashion to some degree, and probably rightly so, and a bit sort of daunting to dive into that. But I trusted the director 100%, and he had a very, very sure eye of how he was, putting the whole piece together in its look and everything. So, I suppose that was in my mind. Yeah,
and I admired that about you, because I think compared to any other Black Mirror episode, I don't know a character had so much dialogue that they had to handle and keep in a consistent tone, and I thought you really nailed that. I also thought you had great chemistry with Letitia, who played Nish. I was wondering, how much rehearsing did you guys have prior to filming, or did you kind of just get put into it?
Nothing, and I kept well away from her. I mean, she's fantastic and great news and going to be a big star. I just kept myself to myself, and I thought it was more useful to do that. We didn't rehearse anything. She at one point said to me, should we just run the lines to this? Yeah, and I said no.
Right.
And she said, nobody's ever refused to run lines with me before. And I went, well, I know the lines. I'll be there. Okay. And so I was pretty nasty to her, really, all the way through, which I hated. And I hope we get a chance to go out and have a beer soon, because I could apologize for being so rude.
No, that's how you do it, man.
Well, it was a pretty daunting thing. The scene where we electrocuted, the electrocution scene, I still to this day didn't know if we should be there, or it's not something I adamantly don't believe in. I can't believe it still exists in the world, that people are still doing this to each other. That this still happens in America, and that was deeply upsetting to be so. I think we did one version of it where I sort of sing to myself all the way through it, which was just so upsetting and gross. But so it was a nasty person to be for those months. But I knew the script. The script is so clever and funny and balanced and right, I thought, and right on the edge.
Yeah, and on the scenes where you're getting more sick as the episode goes on. You're dripping sweat. Did they actually make it hot in there for you guys to feel that, or did you kind of have to really improvise that? No,
it was never hot. It was we shot it on a lot in England. The nice thing was is that the museum was there. It wasn't like you could walk around and see the back of the set. They actually put it in a building, and every morning I'd get up, walk into the museum, and there were all the exhibits, and there was the curtain with the main attraction at the back. And the whole thing was, 3D worked out, and I could sit in it and have my lunch or whatever, and then just stay there all day and shoot. And it wasn't that they took bits of it away or it was artificial, so it was very easy to play all that. I mean, I kept saying I wish they'd kept the whole thing and used it as an attraction, because it would be an incredible thing, if you're a fan of Black Mirror, because somehow they'd managed to keep stuff, not just from this series, but from all the series, and they'd gone back into the storerooms and then put them into the exhibits. The exhibits are incredibly detailed, which, of course, a lot of which you don't see, some of which never even came to light. But it was an amazing piece of, it would have been an interesting thing for any fan to walk around.
Were you able to bring any parts from the set home, or did you, take any little pieces of, memorabilia?
No, I've still got my sunglasses that I wore, which is, they've taken on a whole new meaning.
That's awesome. So the scene where you were put in the convicted murderer's head in the chair, what are you actually looking at during that scene? How did they film that? Are you looking at a giant green screen when they're doing that?
Yeah, we were in a sort of aircraft hangar studio, huge open area with one armchair in it, and then there was a sort of couple of red spots on the wall, a long way away from me, up in the walls, and then I just focused on them. And then they were able to play back some of what they'd shot, but most of it was just sort of read back to me. I think at one point I snapped the armchair in half when we were doing my own electrocution, and so we had to sort of make various choices about how to mend that on the day. But again, awesome. I think the way that whole idea of being stuck in that monkey's head is pretty horrific.
Oh, yeah. Now, with the hologram of the convicted murderer, when you guys are filming that, is there actually an actor standing there you're looking at, or were you guys...
Yeah, he was there. Babs was there every day and did the whole thing. And of course, he's the most gentle, polite, lovely, intelligent guy. And, so that was pretty daunting, too. And they hologrammed him in post. So we just shot the scene with he was in a cell, I was outside the cell. Each time I pressed the button, he, acted his response to it, and we played the scenes through the window. And I think he had an intercom in his cell so he could hear me. And, but then later on they put this extraordinary, ephemeral sort of, into it in post.
Wow.
To make him look like the hologram. But he was there amazing. Very much in flesh and blood, bless him.
Wow. Look, everyone on the message board is saying they want more of Rollo Haynes. We know what happened to him, but could you see a spin-off happening? Maybe in the time when the museum was booming when you were first starting the museum? Could you see that possibly being a thing, a series?
I would dearly love to do that, but I think Charlie Brooker you'd never track him down, and he's so clever. He's changing everything. I mean, I think of Charlie a bit like the most brilliant stand-up comedian, which is, he's a very, very funny man, and partly where he came from. But that point where you tell jokes just to the point where the audience go, no, that is that's just bad,
right.
Taste or wrong. Just at the point where you start to think, this is un-PC, this is not right. That's about when he starts to kick in and operate. That's when he thinks, right, I've got some reaction, here I go. And so I don't know that he'd ever repeat himself or anything. But I love the whole aspects of, from Hitchcock onwards, not just Twilight Zone and all those sort of Tales from the Crypt, which are obvious quotes, but the whole thing of Hitchcock and telling stories and, and saying, okay, this is today I'm going to take you down this road, to this door. It's just, great fun.
Yeah.
And, it'd be great to do. Yeah.
Absolutely. We all want it, and I'm glad to hear that you'd be up for it. And also, another angle, too, is there a chance for Rollo Haynes' consciousness that was in that souvenir at the end? Don't you feel like you left the door a little open for maybe someone getting that consciousness and maybe putting you back to life in some form?
Well, I never thought of that. I've just always thought of him forever screaming, and I think probably that's all he deserves, is to be left in that constant hell.
Right.
We can go backwards into his life, but I don't know if he should ever be saved from the punishment that he's receiving.
Douglas, thank you so much for joining me. You've won a Tony. You're a talented musician. You have tracks on Spotify of music you play, and you're a great actor on the screen. You really do it all. Is there any upcoming projects you'd want to promote?
I'm in a play right now, which opens Thursday night, called Fire and Air. It's a classic stage in New York on 13th and 3rd. It's a lovely off-Broadway, brand-new play by Terrence McNally, and it's all about Diaghilev from Les Ballets Russes. And my next movie is Red Sparrow with Jennifer Lawrence, which I think comes out in March.
Oh, wow.
So that's going to be in all the cinemas. Yeah, so keep an eye out for that. And I'll just keep going.
All right. We're excited to see you. We all love watching on screen. I think this really brought you to more American audiences' eyes in the TV world. And I'm excited to see what else you got in the tank. Douglas, thank you so much for joining me. And everyone listening, please subscribe and tune in for more. Thanks, Douglas.
All right. Thanks for having me. Take care.
Bye-bye.